Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Bay12 Games Talk. My name is Blind, and I'm hosting, and I'm joined by Zach and Tarn-isms.
Excellent. This is Zach, by the way. And
yeah, I'm Tarn, and I'm also doing just great.
And guest hosting today and assisting me here, we have Waylon Snedker, who makes a video game called Odd Realm. If you're interested in learning more about him, you can type an _guest in the chat to get a link. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can grab that down in the description of the video. So I think kind of I gotta say, so normally we do these like every 3 to 4 months, sometimes 5-month gaps in between these. This has been the longest 2-month gap, I think, between one of these ever for me. And I don't know if it's been the same for you guys. So how was like the whole process of launching a game on Steam?
it's pretty insane.
It was intense. Yeah, it's still ongoing. I mean, we're doing more kind of little press things than we've ever done.
And the tension beforehand, it was like sneaking up on us. It's like we were losing sleep and not really noticing it. And like just the tension.
Yeah, and I'm glad we locked everything down more or less on October 26th, because we really would not have been functional for doing additions up till the last second. I mean, we did some stuff, but just it wasn't the same level of work, and that's a good thing. If you're building up to something for years, to not have the ability to save things to the last second, because it's just not going to be able to do it sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, like, at least from my perspective, it did kind of feel like the game came in pretty hot. So hearing that like you said, it was the 26th that you locked in your version, because that's a tight window.
Yeah, the 26th of October too, not November.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right, we had to get in there before the holidays and stuff, and it was like, were we gonna release in December before, or were we gonna wait all the way until it was like February?
Yeah, we'd have to wait till February. So yeah, December, and a December 6th launch, has its downsides, because the holidays came after. And so we haven't had like a really intense patch schedule. It just hasn't been possible. Mm-hmm. So hopefully that'll pick up pretty soon. Should have arena mode soon. That's nice. We like arena mode.
How much were you guys working each day?
Oh, how much?
Yeah, it was like 12-hour days.
On and off. I mean, sometimes not, because we were just too exhausted. And then sometimes all day. And now it's not that way. Now, there's been a lot of sleeping. And then I moved. I just moved. So that's been a whole thing. But like our work schedule is not ever super crunchy. It's just best not to put that kind of strain on yourself. Although, I mean, you can disappear into things, and that's usually okay. I mean, sometimes I do that. But,
I do think that there's a difference between just like, what I think the industry describes as crunch, and also just like, I really want to work on a thing.
Totally.
Yeah. It that used to be true for us. It's not true anymore, because we've got other people we're working with, and you can't do that. It's best not to do that, because you don't want to set those kind of expectations.
Yeah. Setting unrealistic expectations for other people is kind of, I think, the trap that causes crunch.
Yeah. So I mean, as a like a solo developer, you really just have to know yourself and do your own thing, and be a little careful. But now the situation is just totally different for us. Fortunately, if I do have a loss in productivity, the slack is going to be more than picked up, because we have Putnam on board now. So. Yeah, no, I mean, so I think things are going to be good going forward, even if we're doing a lot more kind of administrative stuff and that kind of thing.
Since the topic came up anyways, I'm just going to grab the very first audience submitted question I have here from Xeno Danger Evil. And they say, I know it hasn't been a very, very long with Putnam on board, but I also am a coder, and I tend to never collaborate. After 20 years of keeping the code to yourself, where do you even begin training someone new?
Well, it would be a lot different if it were somebody else.
Right, yeah, because having someone who's been modding the game for years. So they knew how the game worked, but they finally now get to see like where all these variables that they've been hunting for, now they can just find them.
Yeah. I mean, it's I mean, it's obviously, I think, going to be a fun experience for them to go through and see things that they had only seen, because they had been like, disassembling and sending me like assembly language fixes for stuff or whatever. So it's not like, they're quite familiar with what things look like. But some things I'm sure were still kind of surprises in there. But there wasn't really, I mean, there hasn't been onboarding. I mean, I'm sure they took some time for onboarding, but like there hasn't been like a big onboarding discussion at all. It just wasn't like, I mean, I guess we worked through some bugs and stuff. So it's like you kind of go through things at that point, and like if they're working on like some SDL2 stuff right now, and when a thing comes up, I'll kind of have some insights into, why things are set up a certain way, or what they're looking at, like when they were looking at like transparencies that were turning the wrong color, or like the sky tile. And I just threw some variable names out there. And like,
what was that one that you were hunting for? Like it's like a crash or something. You guys were.
Was that before they even came on? Because there was that one, and then there was the one.
You got was it? What was it? I don't remember now. There was something like
I think they mentioned it when I spoke with them the other day. Something about the locations menu breaking something.
Well, yeah, that's right. There was that one, the one with the dungeons. That was a mess, and that was before they had the code.
Yeah.
So we really poked through a lot of that. It's so weird trying to find things when they're like, it breaks out of a loop here, and it has a statement querying this here, and it's kind of like playing one of those logic puzzles to find the places in the code where this thing might have happened or whatever. These 5 places are the places they could be talking about, But now it's just like, here's a diff, or here's a branch, because we're using version control now suddenly, and like it's like cool.
Yeah.
Just popping them back and forth on Discord,
So since we're kind of between topics at this exact point, Waylon, I'm going to kind of give you the floor, and anything that you want to ask these two fine gentlemen about like the process of releasing the game or just game development in general, you can do that. And then after that, we will continue on with more audience questions that I have in this quiet doc that's very long.
Okay, cool. Seeing as we're talking about technical stuff, I was curious, what system or systems have been the most challenging to write for you guys? Specifically, like ones that you go back to again and again, you just always have to rewrite, fix. For me, as an example, that's like the item search, like making sure items are like what items you have to go and carry that are closer, and it's like very slow. So
yeah. We came up with a few shortcuts for that early that are kind of dependent on like connected components in the map system. So we do this kind of flood fill thing where we just label the map, section 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and keep that up to date as the player digs or as water flows through it. Sometimes there's like flood fills going on all the time that does cause some FPS problems, but only in really specific certain situations. And then you kind of know at least where, like, whether this creature can get to this object just by checking 2 numbers. And then we put the different items into all kinds of different sub lists and so forth, so it can search for the right stuff. But yeah, as your numbers of items grow up, it gets to be one of the large problems, especially when you have players that are playing certain styles. Like, I want to dig out the entire layer. And now there's going to be an extra 20,000 boulders that they didn't need. They didn't even need them. They don't care.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you have to, like, like the storage system has kind of this internet ping thing going on where it's like a boulder's like, please store me. And no one cares. So then like 1 second later, it'll check, hey, please store me. And then 2 seconds, 4 seconds, 8 seconds, until finally it's like every 5 minutes, the boulder is like, well, store me or whatever. It's like,
okay.
Just little things, lots of just millions of little optimizations like that. But for us, like, I mean, the fluid system was challenging to set up originally, to get it to that's kind of when we went to 3D in the first place. And now we have all these little numbers flowing around. We have little pressure algorithm and stuff. But that kind of stabilized. It still causes some problems. Pathfinding, we just kind of cut our losses at a certain point by using that connected component stuff again. So like people that fly don't pathfind well over long distances because they act like walkers. That was kind of the concession we made. But they can do little flood fills out from themselves in like combat situations so that they can suddenly use their flying when it matters in that sense. But they can't like fly through a little hole 200 tiles away that they might have noticed or something like that. So that's kind of a thing that we didn't deal with, and that's part of the process of overcoming technical challenges is just losing sometimes and moving on. Yeah, I wonder what else. Like because there's the things that cause real headaches though are map generation issues that like making the caverns underground consistently stitched together over the entire world, and then there's a bunch of changes where you want to add a new type of site or something, and then if you want to work an old save file, it has to play nice with all the stitching points, and then like a seed.
And then like all of this is like building and building and building all these changes, and then we have the big map rewrite because we can't address all of them without having to go and make a huge overhaul to it eventually.
Yeah, it's basically undoable at this point, so we're just going to gut the whole thing and start fresh there, and that'll be. I mean, we have basically a list of like 50 things we want to support in the new map system that cannot be supported now.
Well, regarding that and seed specifically, I'm curious. When you guys changed the tuning for map generation, does that mean a seed is no longer going to guarantee your map is generated the same way?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's. I mean, depending on what you mean by tuning, right? Because there's different times that you can tune. Like you can tune post world gen, like your post world, like your seed for world generation. In our case, can run through the whole history, and then you only do the zoomed in maps later. So we can change the zoomed in maps without changing the world maps.
Right.
But if we change something about the world, I mean, if we change something about the zoomed in maps, like how the river is laid out or something, that's going to have knock-on effects throughout like the site generation code, especially when we get to adventure mode and they're like trying to place their farms, and now the river's in a different location. Now they place their bridge in a different location, and you can do mitigating things. Like we don't just use one seed; we have many seeds to try and like stop the cascade from breaking at certain points. And we have these mid-level maps. There's kind of mid-level maps that get generated, and those are like every world map tile is I'm probably gonna get some numbers wrong here, but something like 768 by 768 play tiles. And each one of those is broken up into 48 by 48 chunks. And so there you have this 16 by 16 mid-level map. And it has a lot of information about river altitudes, general altitude, different like layouts for geology features, and just some information in there that if we can generate that and keep that generation stable for the most part, then when we generate our play areas, the problems are all reduced down to these 48 by 48 areas, and so we can keep things a lot more consistent.
Yeah, just for people that aren't following this, it's just system within system, just meta within meta within meta, and it just keeps building on itself over and over and over again. And like, so one thing is can be changed, and then another thing way over here doesn't cause an error because it's all these systems in between.
Yeah, it's kind of like setting up dominoes and putting those little bricks. What are they called when you set up a giant domino setup, but then you put in those little spacers or whatever that cause it not to all fall apart if it screws up?
Oh, I don't know the name of them, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that
videos.
Yeah, so you can definitely do that when you're setting up your systems to kind of have some stopgap stuff that doesn't make it all die.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Since we're kind of in a nice little gap here, I'm going to chuck in a audience question, which comes in from Computer with 2 R's. And they say, when are we going to see Premium being compatible with Linux and Mac? And another thing, will we eventually have backwards compatibility with version 47 graphics packs?
Yeah. So so the two things we're working toward Linux and Mac now with putting them on the scene. We're doing the SDL2 conversion first. I believe when they were looking into it, they said that might have been a Mac prereq. I don't recall exactly, but that's basically the idea, is that this is already in process, and we don't know when to expect it.
This is the main reason that we needed another programmer, was for the ports. Yeah.
And then for the other graphics packs, yeah. So that was just a concession to the time. We've spent 3 years on it or whatever, and it needed to come out. Was that we're stuck in 32 by 32 land. We're stuck in 8 by 12 land. I think either partially or completely. I don't recall. And I marked all the places. I knew this was going to be a problem, so I marked all the places where texture sizes were kind of baked into some formula or another, and that's just going to be a project to go through, and there's no reason why it has to be that way, and nothing really stunningly complicated about changing it. It's just a slog, and it's going to be done sometime.
Waylon, can you read this next question that I have highlighted?
So the one you're highlighting?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I know this is probably not a priority, but are there any plans to bring back improve the world data exports in Legends modes, XML files, elevations, etc.?
Yeah, everything that wasn't there from Legends mode. There's the snapshots of history, the maps, the little battle maps that it would show, the exports of the graphical maps, which I should probably have an artist look at before we do them again, because those were just mine, right, from before. We can make those look way better, I'm sure.
And we also had like more ideas to expand it, even with the keeping we're gonna have the battles be consecutive or something.
Gosh, what were we gonna do?
Yeah, we have other plans to embellish it even beyond what was already there.
Yeah, I think I may have introduced a bug about it not showing the beginning or the ending of the battles correctly. There's just something.
It's like you couldn't bring up like a war.
Oh, that's right. Yes, there's more hyperlinks. There's some missing hyperlinks for those. Yeah, and so yeah, and the XML, of course. I mean, I know the XML is really important for I mean, Legends Viewer probably doesn't work right now, if that's correct. The mod. Or the utility rather, and the XML is the same, right? The export function is just the exact same, and there's just no button for it. That's really a 5-minute fix that needs to be done, or slightly longer than 5 minutes, because you need.
There's just so many 5-minute fixes.
The thing is that you call it a 5-minute fix, and then you're like, oh, but now we're in the new world where Dwarf Fortress has to be nice, and so there needs to be a little bar that moves too. There needs to be a little bar, and so I've got to introduce a nice little bar. That's got to be so I've got to space out the XML exports so that they're kind of in time, right? So that there's not a big lag in the bar at one point or another. Suddenly you're talking about 30 minutes.
Yeah, why did you think the ASCII lasted so long? Just because we didn't have to deal with a crap like that.
Yeah, but it'll get done. It'll definitely get done.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, previously it was just like press one button, the game freezes for 5 minutes, and then bang, you have your export.
Yeah, it was bad.
Well, now that you guys are working with an art team and you come across something like that, do you have to go through a certain a new process, or are you just jumping on that, throwing in a bar?
No, there's a process. I mean, fortunately, we're reusing stuff, so we have progress bars, and I think that part's good. Now, if we want the XML export button to look nice, then we'd have to do a shout out, and someone would draw an XML with a little arrow. And that's why occasionally you see, especially in the in the latest version with the what did we just do, the burrow add buttons, and there was some other change that was very similar, adding all the materials, so you can suddenly add a bunch of materials, and it just says all in text. That's a very Tarn button, because it's
a letter or something like that, crudely drawn letter.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing we shouldn't be doing, right? I shouldn't be doing that, but I wanted to get the patch out, and so the game is going to slowly devolve, though, if we let that keep happening, and we have to have artists come. And that's why the holidays were rough for patches. I didn't do a lot of things because we with the announcement system, we want to have when we have more permanent announcements and stuff, we want to have some little buttons there. and we don't want them to just be Tarn writing text in a box again. So yeah, it's a process. But I mean, the artists are back now for like arena mode, which I'm going to be trying to finish up on the weekend if I can. Like I'm just going to have some placeholder crap that I draw in a like a ping file or whatever. I shoot the ping over to the Discord, and then the artist with time can like turn that around pretty quickly, and then we'll need to have like the 4 or 8 or whatever images that we need, and then they can go back to like we had our art call recently about like longer term assignments and stuff, and they've got like everybody's got stuff. We're talking about Jacob and Carolyn and Neo Rice is good, all still on the project, and all with things to do. I've seen some baby animals now. We got the aardvarks and armadillos, and
Yeah, they're no longer just shrunken images of the big ones.
yeah, we got custom drawn owlets.
The one that I'm curious about is when large creatures like giants, for example, die, they just become like a shrunken, tiny version of themselves sideways.
Yeah, courtesy of Zach.
Yes, courtesy. Like what is that? It's my fault.
Yeah. Rotate, shrink, desaturate, move on. We've got 3 days to finish this or whatever.
Yeah, they have to fit in a 32 by 32 to work. So it's
that's always going to be a problem. We can't have big items. It's just not a thing.
It's just I remember that one shot of like preview footage of I think it was a giant cut in half in that one.
Yeah,
fortress.
that was the original art. Yeah, that was the one we had to replace.
Yeah, so we had to scrap all of our corpse pictures, sadly. And
Right.
so no, they're definitely like when we have the artists do a corpse pass, like we'll have some cool corpses again.
Yeah, I mean, like originally we were thinking like just having like a skull and crossbones for every single dead thing because there was just too much of it. But we found like that the sideways turning ones just look better.
So Zach's kind of placeholder work there, and it's more than a placeholder, but it's like
It works.
It's a placeholder.
we know it can be better. We know it can be better.
It's just a little funny is all. More than anything. Also, I would like to update you on something that was spoken about in the last one of these, which is I think everybody kind of agrees that the Werepanda is the best sprite in the game. I think that's pretty unanimous.
Yeah, that was a great time when Neo Rice was drawing like all whatever is it like 60, 70
the very first like it was the very first the first release didn't have it. They looked like were creatures looked just like procedural creatures. They looked like Forgotten Beasts, and except that they all were humanoid Forgotten Beasts. They all looked exactly the same, except maybe this one had a tail or not.
a trunk or something.
Yeah, so if, like the one case where it's a were elephant, then it would have a trunk. Otherwise, none of them would, and it all looked the same. But then, like, I forget, it was like the third patch or something like that. Neo Rice finally finished them all.
Yeah, and it was like, but we were just in the Discord watching them come in like in 1s and 2s, and it was a blast.
I had a fort running when that patch came out that had like 8 different were creatures just like in the walls. So the patch hit, and I just restarted the game. I was like, look at them all. It was kind of great.
Yeah, it's a whole new era of save compatibility, right? Making sure that the graphics patch in and stuff.
Mm-hmm. So
try.
This next question comes in from a frequent chat user who I cannot pronounce the name of, but to do them the favor, I'm going to try. Jeez.
Ayagushka?
Ayagushka? Is that how you say that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ayagushka.
They say, hello, my question is, will there be a place and time for some FPS improvements? The game has improved substantially from the time of release, but I would like to know if in the future we could have even bigger forts. Then they say thank you.
Yeah, I mean,
I was about to say,
Putnam's already done it, so they'll keep coming.
Waylon, do you want to take this next one?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is from Mumbling Kobold. What changes, if any, can we expect to see to adventure mode for the Steam Classic release?
Steam Classic. So I think the UI is all going to change, even in Classic, because there has to be 1-per-1 when you hit that button that it all shifts back and forth. So but then the UI is getting a complete overhaul because it's just like fort mode. It's like it won't work with. It has to have the mouse is going to be involved. I don't think you're going to need the mouse.
No, not this time.
But this time is different because it's like a roguelike. It's like a traditional roguelike game, the way it's controlled.
Yeah, but we're not sure yet. Like what features are coming in.
Oh yeah. That's the other thing is that we're going to make it much more make much more sense.
Yeah,
It's like you're going to be traveling between cities, and there's going to be differences, and
yeah. I mean, it's hard to say because we already
we're
have.
going to do what we can. We're
Yeah.
going to do what we can to make it to make it make sense and not just be about it's inevitable or whatever, right?
Yeah, randomly dancing with people and stuff. I mean, that's all still there. It's not like that's going away.
Yeah. It's a big ask to make it work, but we're gonna try.
We're already gonna. Yeah, the plan was the villain, really. I mean, the problem is our plan to improve the core gameplay of adventure mode is the villains and army stuff, and I don't think we should just do it all immediately. But we're very tempted to do certain things.
Yeah, we want it to be good. We want to make a good impression.
Yeah, we want to make a good impression when we launch adventure mode.
And right now, it's still kind of in its silly state.
It is a very strange thing.
Is it ever on the table to have adventure mode as a separate application, separate game?
Yeah, definitely. Now, of course, they play so nice together. Going into your old fortresses and stuff was the original idea, but we've always had this kind of idea floating around to do dungeon mode.
Yes.
Which is just make a straight roguelike using all of the stuff we have.
Yeah, the only problem is that it is too artificial for Dwarf Fortress. It's like everything has to connect everything else, and when you just have a dungeon like Dungeons and Dragons where there's a monster in this room, there's a different monster in this room, there's treasure type D in this room, and it's like that just goes against everything that we do.
And we don't have like the same. We don't have the advantages that other people have when they're allowed to just they can slap some pluses on things. They can slap some magical properties on items. They can make the thing kind of ramp up like that. We have like limited ability to do that. Like we can have well crafted items versus superior items and stuff. But little magic baubles are kind of the beyond the scope of what we can do until we get to the magic release, and then suddenly that would crack dungeon mode open. But at the same time, the magic release cracks the game open so far that dungeon mode may just be an afterthought at that point. Because adventure mode is so cool.
Speed run mode or something.
Yeah. But there's a lot of cool ideas out there about small modes that might be fun to explore.
I just want to be able to actually explore the catacombs underneath those human cities instead of the game running at a frame per year.
Yeah.
You got 10,000 brains thinking things go a little slow.
Go to the Goblin Towers is also really terrible. I mean, if we end up with like Goblin Tower themed music or something when you go to the Goblin Tower, you'll be able to enjoy the track.
But these are the not ready for public consumption things that we're going to be concentrating on.
Yeah, we don't know. But we're hoping. I mean, we're really hoping for some optimization in those situations for sure.
Hey, if the Goblin mode music slaps just as hard as the Tavern song, I think we'll all be fine.
Yeah. We don't have any announcements yet on the music, but we are working our best to make sure that people are going to be very excited and happy with how that turns out.
That's quite the tease. The next question comes in from Abdo Albast, I think is how you say that. And they say, what is the next 3 goals in your update plan, and what is your favorite kind of pizza?
3 goals: arena mode, fix a bunch of crap, and then get started on adventure mode. Is there something else? Yeah, there's lots of stuff. Also, I don't know. They're not ordered though because
the UI for just UI changes and quality of life.
Quality of life.
Changes.
Yeah. I mean, there's way more than 3 quality of life changes on the list. So, but we could just put that as one of the things. Also, pizza.
Probably barbecue chicken.
We've been eating barbecue chicken a lot lately. Yeah.
Ooh.
Not so much that you have to worry. I know people worry. We had a barbecue chicken pizza recently.
I've had one pizza this year.
Yeah, it's the 19th of January. Yeah, no, that's a noble rate. Yeah.
approximately a
One,
pizza.
one whole pizza.
Yeah, one whole pizza in one sitting. Actually, it wasn't a very large pizza.
Yeah, it's the size that matters. Yeah, I like that Athenian Greek pizza I have at that one bar too. That's pretty good.
What is that?
It's like
Theme?
artichoke hearts and tomatoes and feta cheese or something like that. It's like vaguely Mediterranean or something is the theme.
At a Irish themed sports bar in East Bremerton.
Yeah, yeah. That is like built around the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't make sense, but they have it's a good pizza.
Kind of reminds me of there's a place in Vancouver that's themed after the Boston Bruins for some reason, like entirely, which is like one of the most hated teams in Vancouver for.
Well, that might explain it.
But Waylon, do you want to read this next one from Ben?
Yeah. So Ben Coveney asks, and I like this type of question because I'm also curious about this. I'd love to hear about programming style and the code base given its age. I think Tarn has said before that he has moved away from object-oriented stuff. How has their taste developed, and what kind of patterns are used in the code base?
Yeah, definitely have decided that object-oriented mainly isn't for me. So hard to add new things. It's not. It does. It's. I mean, that's one of the selling points is you're supposed to be able to just slap new stuff in there, but not if you're going to change what's down underneath, right? It just gets too calcified. Like my items are super calcified now, and then I just start dumping things into tools. So it's something like a beehive and a step ladder or like the same thing, right? Because it's I was just like everything's a tool now. Screw this hierarchy. I don't like it anymore. And I would have just I'd prefer to have gotten rid of it. So it's what game developers sometimes called entity component systems if they aren't an optimization type person, because if you're an optimization type person, then entity component system means something completely different. It just means lining up your variables and arrays or whatever a certain way so that the processor likes them. But for our purposes, it's more like you have these extensible chunks that can kind of be allocated in and out for various objects, so that an object can have many different roles without creating like a triple diamond, quadruple, septuple diamond of hierarchy that is impossible to work with in an object-oriented system. That's a thing. The rest of my programming style is probably crap too. This is like when Blind had Putnam on, that would be the kind of question to ask. More like, now that you've seen it, right? What is
What is the style? Yes.
Yeah. You can go ahead and pass along that it doesn't like put them in danger or anything of being fired. I'm happy to hear.
Like, when was the last time that you saw someone else's code that wasn't Temple of Loth from 1983?
Yeah, I guess occasionally I see little snippets, like when we added the split mix little random number generator that they were talking about at the roguelike celebration, which has been fun to put in some places. And then they're just like these nice little things with like tons of magic numbers and stuff that work a certain way. I try not to. I don't know how to do that stuff, so I just kind of roll with it. Different style from me. Everyone does different. My braces are a really different thing to look at, I'm sure. Putnam would love to comment on my bracing style or whatever, because I put more spaces or more carriage returns or whatever than people normally put, because I like to see them blocked out a little better. I can't do that thing where a brace dangles at the end of the line, and then you're just supposed to have it match up as if you're like programming in Python with your tabs, but then there's like where the tabs actually count for something and then they don't count for anything in C, but you just kind of have, I just can't do it. I like having them in little blocks. Yeah. Even though it means I can see half as much on the screen sometimes. I don't care. I don't like the dangling things that I forget they're there and stuff. I don't know.
If you guys had to start from scratch tomorrow, would you use a game engine or would you again write your own?
Writing my own's been such a pain in the ass. But
Unity is crap too.
Yeah, Unity's having so much trouble lately. And I don't know about Unreal. I don't know enough about it. And I don't know how long they last. Like, it's like my thing is all cobbled together, but it's been holding together for 20 years.
That's a good point.
And and Unity is starting to run away from people now, sometimes.
Yeah.
And and I don't know about Unreal. So it's like, if there's something stable, like SDL's been okay. I should have updated to 2 probably before, the last decade or whatever, which is what's happening now. But so we have been using an engine in that sense, right? I don't handle my own like really core stuff.
Right.
And I used to do my own OpenGL, and that we got deprecated like 20 years ago. It's like I didn't start using vertex buffers or whatever, and we've probably already moved on from that into like shader country or whatever, and I don't know how to do any of that stuff. So it gets to be hard to keep your own engine up because things keep specializing, and you're just going to spend a lot of time on that stuff and less on your game. So. But for a long project, it's just an impossible decision, I think.
Trying to think what engines even existed and that were like accessible to the public in the early 2000s.
Yeah, 2002. That could have been a Flash game. We might have actually done the mutant miner thing properly if it was a Flash game instead of moving on to this project.
Since the next 2 are programming related, Waylon, if you want to take them, you can.
Yeah, that'd be great. This one's from Doku. From experience, I know that bringing someone else onto a mature project can be challenging. Have you found any code patterns, design practices, or more loosely, Tarn-isms in your code that are a little more difficult to communicate? Conversely, has Putnam brought any interesting or unexpected insight that you found valuable?
I mean, interesting, sure. I mean, the just knowing how to do anything with version control, that's certainly news to me.
What are you using?
Git, just whatever, because MSVC supports it kind of in. We're not doing a remote or anything. It's nothing. It's not on the cloud. We just kind of share diffs back and forth. It's been stable so far. Everything's synced up. We'll see how that goes. And not diffs, but I mean also just exports of branches and stuff.
Right.
But we'll see how that goes. It hasn't been long.
It hasn't been.
It's been a couple weeks. It's been a couple weeks. So it's kind of hard to answer this question now.
A couple weeks and the holidays and stuff.
Yeah, because I've seen so I've seen snippets of Putnam code now, and there's just not, but most of them are just like, here, add this line because this is crashing or whatever, right? So it's not like there hasn't been like a lot to look at there, and if there are Tarn-isms, I haven't heard about them. I'm sure there are plenty, but I haven't heard about them. And generally, they've been complimentary enough. In like a Future of the Fortress question, I saw that they responded to, saying like, it's actually better optimized than you might have expected. There was a few low hanging fruit things that we cleaned up, and it's not, but I'm not sure if it's like that, Chernobyl line, it's like not great, not terrible. So it's like, I don't know. It's hard to say, right? Because people have to be, a little circumspect about things in whatever forum they're speaking in, perhaps. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure. It just hasn't been long enough. I'm sure that there'll probably be some interesting things to raise as we come to them. So keep asking.
I will say that it's been really fun having Putnam in the chat, just like straight up answering people's questions about how things work, and it's like, all right, adding that to the wiki.
Yeah, and I've basically haven't put restrictions on that kind of thing. I've basically said like don't send the entire set of headers to df hack. We'll wait a little bit on that or. Just some common sense restrictions, I suppose, or maybe not sensible. Who knows? But things like that. But they can chat about whatever they want,
which is awesome. Like I've never played a game where a developer is allowed to do that, so it's certainly been exciting.
Yeah, no, it's fun. We like it.
There are quite a few mechanic systems in the game, such as farming, that will become much harder to interact with if made more realistic. This is a great question. What has been your philosophy on game balance versus game realism when approaching developing Dwarf Fortress?
Well, we were just going to. We're talking about farming specifically. We were just going to make the above ground farms. We're thinking about it, making them more dependent on the climate and stuff like that. We were just talking about that.
I think there's a lot we can do with farming so that's a good example in the sense that with like we could do a lot with farming that would make it more quote realistic or whatever without I think harming the player experience, and then you cross a line. You cross a line at some point.
Yeah.
You really have to think about the play. I mean, the whole time, every single thing we've designed about Dwarf Fortress, you constantly think about the player experience. It doesn't feel like it sometimes, but it's the case.
Like the whole once again with the farming, right? It's like we had to really think about the close to the surface farming, producing enough to survive on versus having to go to the deep caverns to farm. And we wanted to get that balance so that people that don't go all the way to you don't have to go to the caverns in order to survive.
Yeah.
But we wanted that to be a thing that's like what you want to do.
Game design decisions that like override, whether that makes sense or not. And of course, you can kind of make it make sense if there's a lot of fresh, dung down in those caverns or whatever. Very, very rare dung.
That has nothing to do with reality, though. So it's like the above ground farming is more what we were talking about.
Yeah, and if we had so what are the things you could throw in? You could throw in, and we've threatened all of these things at one point. You could throw in like NPK values for fertilizer, hidden, and then they have to interact with like phosphorus and bone meal and nitrogen fixation and pests, lots of pests, and how dry is the soil, and also we've got all these loams and sandy clay loam and stuff, certain things growing only in certain ones of those. There's temperature and all that stuff. Like I think some setup of that is fair to start considering, and you just don't want to throw people all the way in the deep end and make it so that when they try to play the game, they're like, but I don't want to play this game because it sucks.
Let's play Odd Realm instead.
Yeah, let's play Odd Realm. Odd Realm's not going to do this to me.
Nobody says that.
They will though if we fuck up, right?
It depends on how heavily Dwarf Fortress crashes that day.
Yeah. No, it's you have to be thinking about the player experience at all times.
So when you guys come up with, you have a new idea, what is the process for getting that into the game? And at what point do you stop and say, yeah, let's add some new stuff, especially now that you're working with a team? Like, what is that whole process?
So we were mainly working on it's been so long since we've added anything new. We've just been like working on the UI for 3 years or something. It's been so long since we've
So it's not like we've forgotten.
We haven't forgotten.
It's that we haven't done it with a team yet. So it's really we can't answer that part because there hasn't been like a really big, cool new feature that has involved the artists and potentially sound people and like a UX person or something and Putnam and like that. We have not touched that yet. The things that we threw in, like the little knickknacks we threw in for the release, like the new end game stuff and some of the stuff we put deep underground, the artists weren't involved with that.
Yeah, same with like stuff like the labor system overhaul.
That just there were some buttons, of course, that came up with work details and that kind of thing, but like it was just kind of an us-led thing that wasn't really from the ground up as new stuff will be. But generally speaking, we do we think about stuff on paper first. I'm playing around with Miro now. Miro is pretty fun if you want to check that out for brainstorming. Miro, and that it was fun to make a little Miro board and play with it. But you draw arrows and they connect up, and you can move stuff around. It's fun.
This has saved us from Tarn's handwriting.
Yes, we have. My handwriting has fallen. It's a fallen from. It was never graceful, so it hasn't fallen from grace. I never did well in handwriting, but now it's impossible to read because I don't write except when I'm doing dwarf stuff, and there's long gaps, in those planning sessions, and it's your hands were like, this isn't a keyboard. What is this? Yeah, because we have so many TXT files, and the TXT files. Another reason we were thinking about switching to Miro is the TXT files from 20 years they're finally up to this unwieldy state, even for us who are used to them. to just search for stuff we had done before. There's been more and more times where we'd have this really interesting conversation about villains, right? Or something.
Right. Like when we put it into that more, using that software into that more readable form or like manipulatable form,
taggable, searchable, all kinds of stuff.
Right. We start saying like, okay, we had this idea, and then we look back on that and we're like, okay, we've had this idea 5 times.
Yeah, we've literally have an idea written down 3, 4, 5 times from like 6 discussions about villains over 5 years, and we just got to stop. We got to get that under control. Especially when like it's really shameful when like the first one's the best too. It's like, come on.
That's like when you write some new code and you're like, yeah, this is the first time I've written this, and then you go and search your code base. And it's like, no, I've written this actually 2 times.
Yeah. Literally have another function there that's just named differently, and you didn't think to name it the same way. That's actually sitting there, and maybe it even has more bells and whistles because you've been working with it for a while and then kind of forgot about it 6 years later. Yeah.
So the next question I have lined up here comes in from Alec, and they ask, the burrow system is great, but I've lost many children to kidnappers. Could we get a way to mark burrows for children only? I would love to make a nursery or something.
Yeah, more than that, like having it be respected by the game as beyond a burrow, but actually like some kind of nursery zone was actually something that was floating around, and also adoption, and like if a parent is killed and the baby is crawling around, they don't just let it crawl into the lava and die. Like we have this list of things, and it's one of these things where it's like, when is that the high priority thing you want to do? And it hasn't happened yet. Even though it sounds so crucial, right? And it is, for a certain experience.
That's so relatable.
Yes, we hold out hope. We hold out hope for the actual nursery zone. But yeah, stopgap measure actually of like a children's burrow. I mean,
aren't they arranged in a way you could
do it?
You could just,
but
are they all on the bottom of the list? So you just click all, make a burrow and click all the children.
I guess anytime we propose that somebody click something 40 times, we've really got to be like, no.
Well, I mean, there is like the add military and add citizens button.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so we could split children into there. I don't know if there's like, and then it becomes a whole spreadsheet or something too, right? We gotta.
I think the thing that a lot of people don't understand is that you can suggest something and it'll be like quite easy sounding, and then you start working on it. It's like, oh, actually, this is going to have a knock on this other system. It's going to require, like we were talking about before, some new UI, and it just like gets bigger and bigger, and it was seemingly this tiny little task.
Yeah, it's like the suggestions are great and like often not actionable. I mean, when we read suggestions, we try and say, what is the core issue this person is experiencing it, and then we have to solve it our own way.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
That's why this.
We know what you want. You don't know what you want. We know what you want.
It's also why this is such a good conversation, because Waylon spent like a year rebuilding the UI for your game too. So.
Well, I spent a year and a half rebuilding like the whole foundation, and
it won't be the last time either.
Yeah.
Speaking of suggestions, I've got basically a suggestion from Old Zwari, and they say, any plans to add fluffy wambler shearing? It could work similarly to milking purring maggots.
I mean, it's what is the nature of the fluff and the pudge, right?
I don't want to know anything about the pudge.
It's the pudge. They got the pudge and the fluff. And so, like, is it a shearable fluff?
Or is it more like candy cane?
Yeah,
candy. What's it called? Cotton candy.
Fluff.
Cotton candy.
And maybe you wouldn't shear it. Yeah, you wouldn't shear it. You'd rinse it with soap and then like let it percolate in some kind of tub. So it's like the adamantine process where you get these random wafers and stuff that come yeah. And then you've got a pudge. But if you've got an unfluffy wambler, does it like change the adjective in front of it? And it's like pudgy wambler, and then it's just like a little Kirby looking sucker or something, right? Just like poke. You can poke it. Poke.
This needs to be a soundbite because, like, out of context.
Snipe it out like the Tarn talking Kobold, and I think the first or second one of these we did.
Yeah.
Do you want to take this next one from Andre, Waylon?
Mm-hmm. So Andre asks, would you consider using a real-world instrument classification system, and in brackets, Hornbostel sax? I'm not sure what that means. To procedurally generate realistic instruments. I've been toying around with the idea, adapting the system to satisfy the game's needs. You could make the generated instrument as described in the real world, and it would work. I was also working on a Dwarf song procedural generator in C, but I'm not that good at programming.
We have they're categorized by the closest picture that represents them at this point, I think.
Yeah, if we're talking about the graphics, I mean, we just have the 8 pictures, but if you're talking about like instrument generation in general, like we did okay. There's a lot of crap there. I don't know about this classification scheme and like what the difference is between what we did. I mean, we just took a bunch of real world examples and cut them into pieces, generally classified them, and made all kinds of crap out of them. Same thing with the poetry generator, and I mean the poetry form generator, the dance form generator, the musical form generator. Like you can do a certain amount, and then, you know, did we not do it efficiently? Did we not spend enough time on it? I don't know. I mean, I'm not even sure the person asking the question is aware of the work that we did to this point.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of hard to say, you know, what dissatisfied them or what they don't know. So I think we did okay. But there's a lot more you can do. There really is a lot more you can do.
There's always a lot more you could do, I think.
Yeah.
We're kind of in the like suggestion-y section of the questions, but this one comes in from Transfem, and they ask, will we ever get Chariots? Is essentially the question.
Well,
or multi-part mounts and equipment, depending on implementation or mythology.
So we know the wagon is a creature.
Yeah, we have the wagon.
The wagon is a creature. It's screwed up. And we have, I guess, moving fortress. Moving fortresses is like in the development notes, and like, is it possible for a moving fortress to be a wagon? Is an initial question I'd have, and then if that is at all graceful when we're doing the boats, because that was kind of the plan for the boats, is that moving fortresses would be boats. But I don't know how small we can get and still be like legitimate or interesting. Like if the little things can only turn, like if a chariot can only turn 4 directions, but can kind of have a velocity that takes it, you know, over 1 up 2 or something, whatever. Like, does it still work? I mean, I know there's existing work on this in games like Cataclysm and stuff, and we can't do things the way they do it because they have, I mean, at least last time I looked at it was many years ago, they had shearing, and we can't shear.
Now we have graphics though.
Yeah, no, we still can't shear though because of the wrestling. Like if you take the back of a chariot and move it 1 over, then the people standing here and here become disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
The visual style of Cataclysm also is difficult to look at if you're not used to the way the cars turn.
Yeah. And I don't know if there's, I mean, I don't know if it's better to have, or for Dwarf Fortress, it's certainly better to have blocks that just kind of have weird directions that aren't really pointing the direction they're going. But maybe there is like Zach says, now that we have graphics, there's like a halfway to do it where you angle within the block that you're in for a little while. Maybe it looks bad. I don't know. We the artists are good at making things that we think look bad look good, though. We've found multiple times. So there could be an angle here, literally and figuratively. So yeah, I don't know. But yeah, that's the basics on Chariots, is like it lives in these different locations because you want the chariot to be able to interact with items, interact with people being at different locations on it. So it has map-like qualities, but it also has creature-like qualities because it moves. Yes.
I mean, I'm now just like imagining remembering the one time I got a barrel of wagon blood. And I'm wondering if that would mean would it be possible then at that point to get boat blood?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it depends on if like the creatureness of it, you know.
It has to be one tile, so it's more of like it would be raft blood.
Yeah, you'd probably be more likely to have raft blood for sure.
It was in a barrel, so I put it on a pedestal and it lived there.
Was the barrel made out of wagon wood? Like,
I can't remember. I think it was just some like normal wood,
yeah,
like oak or
well,
something. But
that's right. Well, so it wouldn't feel like it was a cannibal barrel or something.
it's an elf-aligned barrel.
Yeah,
Now, that would be creepy
yeah.
if it was a grown wagon wood barrel with wagon blood. Anyway, this is some body horror stuff. I'm
Yeah,
not ready
elves
for.
have to grow their wagon. Growing a wagon is a hard thing. Like, can an elf grow a wheel and stuff? Right.
Can an elf grow a wagon? That's a
Yeah.
question for some, I don't know. Trying to think
Or
who would be a film
elf,
director that would
probably.
direct that movie.
Yeah. Some
Any-
Cronenberg, like Elf Cronenberg.
Yeah, very wet barrel. This next question comes in from Benny G, and they say, are there any plans to restrain necromancers somewhat? Religious organizations and whatnot, and whatnot to combat the undead threat. Currently, necromancers seem to take over the world in most long worlds I generate. I look at the one I'm generating in the background right now and see a necromancer tower.
Yeah, no, that's literally the idea, though, where we're going to have night creature hunting organizations and
Yeah, it's making it harder to spread the, with so many apprentices and stuff, making it more hard to spread the curse around.
yeah, and we're so fond of like imprisoning them when they're captured, when they could be like drawn and quartered or something, right? Or otherwise dealt with.
Yeah, what's the penalty for being a necromancer in dwarf in fortress mode? Is like 10 days in prison or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. If it were even a crime,
Yeah.
and they like see one come to the bar, and they're like, "Hey, cool." And it's like, you could have some stigma here. It would be okay. Yeah, no, we'd like to get it under control, especially because, and that person points out kind of the cardinal sin of the necromancer right now, which is ruining world generation, and it's got to be brought under control at some point.
Waylon, do you want to take this next one from Anonymous?
Yeah. So Anonymous asks, I appreciate all the work you've done and I'm trying to be patient, but do you have any idea when fuller keyboard controls and announcements printed on screen as options might become available?
And now, what does that second part mean?
I don't
Think
know. They
a
make a
full-
mod for that, don't they?
Full
Though.
screen announcements is the thing that I've seen a lot of people yelling about and missing.
Is that just pressing A from the old
Yeah.
one? Yeah, no, that was actually okay. Yeah, that
was coming. That we were thinking about.
We're trying to patch
We'll
that
do that
in.
soon,
We're
yeah.
gonna hopefully we were hoping to patch it in for next time, but the patch schedule just got accelerated, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, no. So announcements, reports, that kind of stuff. Getting back to where they were.
Yeah,
That's
near term.
That's
yeah.
very near term. The keyboard support was going to be a kind of as we go thing, because it is a difficult problem. The menus that we have are not. I mean, like take any game and add full keyboard support to it. You're asking them for something very, involved. And that was something that we knew we were going to be in for, but it's also something that's going to take time because you have to have like an active like focus and stuff or something and be tabbing through all kinds of things. It's not like Dwarf Fortress interface was always bad, and I don't think adding a keyboard interface to certain menus is going to be any better. It's going to be as bad as it was before. There's no way around that. So I mean, this is what people are asking for though, because they don't like the mouse or can't use the mouse, right? I mean, there were certain people were attracted to Dwarf Fortress because they literally could not use a mouse. So we're going to go for that if that's something that Putnam ends up helping with, or if it's something that I end up doing in between other things. But the person wanted a schedule, and I can't provide one for that part.
Yeah, I think in these questions, some people will ask for schedules, and I think it's just kind of expected that we can't give them one unless it's like literally coming out next week. Which
we could pretty much do for that announcement stuff. Although next week, like I said, we got just a little early.
Yeah, we got all
maybe the patch after. We'll see.
Right.
Depends on the weekend. Weekend is now dwarfy as hell, and we'll figure out what happens.
How many updates have been on schedule? Like, what's the chance that they make the deadline? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, everything's going to be fine. In other words,
patches have been.
Yeah, we're going to make it. Yeah.
So this next question comes in from Sotin, and they say, will you guys ever let sentient caged animals or prisoners ask for citizenship? It's amazing to have other creatures as citizens.
You said caged. Are you talking about like
Cage trap.
invaders that you've captured suddenly, like being?
I think that's what they mean. Yeah.
Or like just a random,
I think this
Trog
could
that
extend
you
to like
caught in a cave.
troglodytes or gorlaks, but also potentially like
First,
random humans.
if you cage a Gorlak, you're just an asshole, and why would they want to live there? Just let them in. Let them come to the tavern. Let them chill out. Let them guide and mentor your people, even though they don't actually do that, but that's what they're supposed to be doing.
I like Gorlaks. Gorlaks
Everyone likes Gorlak. Gorlaks are good, and so yeah, and of course Gorlaks can Gorlaks already become citizens? Do they have a petition?
I've never seen that happen. If they can,
they should. I mean, if all the animal people can. So yeah, no, that
They're too good for Dwarven society. It's beneath them.
it's possible, yeah. But yeah, if we're talking about like integrating prisoners, I mean, we want to do more things with the prisoners you capture because they're just sitting there in a cage and you can't do much with them because the dwarves don't do those sorts of things.
You can throw the cage in the lava.
You can throw the cage in the lava. They do that. But yeah, I mean, just releasing I don't know about the integration is a little tricky because, I mean, the last thing the goblin was doing was serving a demon and kidnapping your children. So that's a step up anyway. Yeah. Certainly certain kinds of petitions.
Since
petition
Chad
for
is
their
talking
freedom.
about Gorlaks pretty consistently, the only time I've seen a Gorlak join was when they were part of a musical group that was mostly elves.
Yeah. That's what I'd expect when they're in like when they manage to get their way into a regular joining thing, rather than just being a random wanderer underground that they don't even know to visit your tavern. Then I'm assuming.
It seems like that. Yeah, they just kind of act like troglodytes generally.
Yeah, it's sad for them because they shouldn't.
Waylon, do you want to take this next one?
This one's coming in hot from Ori Utsen. Will it be possible to organize search and kidnap/assassinate missions to squads or agents once the intrigue system is developed in order to mess with others' plots, start your own, and sometimes get some justice for all those stolen artifacts and planned coups?
Yeah, and for any other reason.
This is the whole villain.
Yeah.
The whole delayed villain.
Yeah, the delayed
adventure release. Yes.
Every plot should be accessible from dwarf mode and adventure mode, so that you can run your espionage as you wish from fort mode, and also so that you can start and run a criminal organization in adventure mode. Or like an organization doing those things that you don't consider a criminal organization, but they're just out doing things. Yeah.
I mean, some people just demand to have your legendary woven sock.
Yeah.
That apparently they've been seeking for their entire life, even though we made it six months ago.
Yeah, we had to do something, right? We had to make the villains. Yeah, the villains do have like kind of this radar for goods, I covet the artifacts produced in your game. We'll make it a little bit better later when we have more visitors, more like probing. They don't have enough probing with their henchmen going to visit taverns and then like relaying the things that they hear about the artifacts that are there, the ones they see on display.
Casing the joint.
Yeah, they don't quite do that. There's some auto casing. They do have to do the heist. The heists are all honest. Like no matter how it got out of your fortress, it got out honestly, and it's your fault. Same as the kidnappings and regular item thievery by kobolds and such. Always the player's fault.
I think it was like the second or third day after the Steam version came out, and I had a tavern that had a gem on a pedestal in the middle of it. And it was like Ocean's 11. There was literally like 15 different humans that all came in at the exact same time and all went, "Curse you! I will have this," or whatever. And then they all ran away at the same time and none of them got it. It was very, very satisfying. And then somehow, after some sort of construction job, it was just gone. Yeah. Mysteriously. It was a good time.
Yeah. No, the inside job one where they flip one of your citizens, like, there isn't really a way to stop that from happening. I'm like, you could catch the person and throw them in prison or whatever, because they'll get reported if it was in a easy to find place. But the dwarves don't understand yet that if like someone reaches out onto a pedestal and there's no job to remove the object, that person is in fact stealing the object, even if they're a citizen.
Right, yeah, like but for one of the first forts we were testing, I tried to catch one of them with drawbridges and then drown them to get the artifact back, but they escaped through the ceiling because one of the trees I chopped down, the roots disappeared and left a hole in my drowning chamber.
It's a pretty sneaky plan. I like that. I did once have a active interrogation request against an intelligent undead that I knew had flipped one of my citizens because other dwarves witnessed the Passover, but we were like the pass of like the artifact from one person to the next.
Yeah.
But he was able to get off the map with it. Then he came back a few like months later, and we interrogated him, and he still had the artifact on him. Which was pretty good. Like he came back with it, so we were able to get the artifact back that way. But
yeah, did you have to kill him though? Because I don't think they don't know how to confiscate or anything, do they?
Yeah, no. I very much locked him up and then sent the military after him, and we stabbed him to death.
Yeah, no, that's how it has to be right now. But we'll get there. Just a few common sense changes to how the sheriff and stuff treat stuff in front of their very eyes will go a long way.
So the next question comes in from a beekeeping dwarf, and I wonder this one myself quite frequently, which is why does mead have a value of 1?
Because we didn't catch it when we were rebalancing the economy. I mean, it's yeah, it sucks.
I don't remember. Did we ever nerf the meal?
We failed to nerf the meals. I think. I don't think they got nerfed as much as we wanted.
They're not as OP as they like. You can't like buy out an entire caravan anymore with a single meal. But they're still very valuable.
They're still too valuable, yeah. Yeah, we noticed on stream. We were watching a lot of streams over the holidays, and yeah, we were like, oh, come on. That shouldn't be worth $400 or whatever.
Oh.
And yeah.
Clino just reminded me of something. I once was interrogating people, and the captain of the guard like took this visitor aside, interrogated him. And then I read the interrogation notes, and the criminal admitted to corrupting the captain of the guard while, like, from what I can tell, during like the process of taking him from the tavern to interrogation room, corrupted him. Amazing. And then the captain of the guard confessed, and then I assigned a new captain of the guard and arrested the captain of the guard.
But did the first captain of the guard dutifully put this down in their interrogation notes? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And also, then the also as part of that also admitted to like corrupting somebody else to steal an artifact to do a coup and whatever other thing.
Yeah, we always make them break fully so that you can kind of when they break, I mean, so that you can kind of follow some threads. That's the hope anyway. Once you can follow threads.
Well, speaking of suspicious users, Waylon, do you want to take this next one from an elf lord?
Mm-hmm.
Is it intentional for Whybeast to show up in taverns? I've had 5 forts in the last few months that have been destroyed because Whybeast visitors showed up and transformed. It's much more common than you'd think, and turning off Whybeast attacks does not prevent visitors who are cursed. It's a shame to have to disable Whybeast altogether in World Gen just for this.
No, it should be. That's just a bug/oversight thing. There's a lot of visitors, as you know. Like, we did that 4705 patch, and we're supposed to, like, stop necromancers and intelligent undead from being visitors, but no. They slip through the cracks. Like, the detector is not... I don't know why the detector is not an easy thing to get working, because we literally have checks, and, like, they don't work.
Yeah, I don't think that's ever happened in one of my forts yet.
Yeah, not sure.
I love those questions where it's like, is it intentional? And you're like, absolutely not. Like 99% of the time, it's not intentional.
Yeah, it may just be a diplomatic way of like doing a bug report, basically.
Yeah.
Speaking of, is it intentional? Joe Robbins asks, with the Steam release, there appears to be some issues with crossbow bolts being able to assign different ammo types for different situations. When can we expect to see this addressed?
It was in the short list. I was going to do it the week before launch, but as we were saying, the lockdown, like
Yeah, like, are we going to make it? I mean, are we going to make it wait till February? And
Yeah.
maybe it will actually have to wait till
Now,
February.
yes,
So, yeah.
but fortunately for the rest of the game, you all didn't have to wait. But yeah, for crossbow bolts, I'd expect it by February. It's in the list after like announcements and reports and stuff. We're just in this list of and when we're talking about the crossbow bolts, this is not just there's the ammo stacks, like that whole military interface thing is just not in there. It's using the legacy code for it, but that means that certain things don't happen. That just needs to be fixed, which means rewriting the ammo system, not to how it was before, which we're completely unsatisfied with, but a new system that gets the hunters and the archers and the training archers all playing nice in a way that hopefully is more intuitive than it's ever been. And that's the goal. Then also dealing with the another thing from the military that didn't make it through was the supply settings. And it seems like the knock-on from this is that there's a lot of rotten food left from backpacks and rooms from soldiers. That's all on the radar. That's going to be fixed. But also, finally, since we're on the topic, the ammo behavior for soldiers, improving that so they don't just start clubbing people with their crossbows. They know how to use fortifications better. They know how to go grab some extra ammo. Know where to stand a little bit better if we can think that through. That's what's on the menu.
That's actually really exciting. I personally just don't use crossbow dwarves at all. Not because like they don't work, but because it's just too much of a hassle to just make them work. So
which is it's basically the same thing, and so we'd like to lower that tension or friction or whatever.
Waylon, do you want to take this next one? I think it's kind of fun.
Yeah. This is from Eurostrat. Tarn, my world is only 53 years old, but I have encountered a 175-year-old goblin thief called Snowdub. Amazing name. He was quickly executed for stealing the gold mini forge. Is the world's age linked to the beginning of a dwarven calendar? How could this now very dead goblin be older than the world?
Oh, most things are like because all I mean, in the beginning, like the younger your world is, the more creatures there are that predate the beginning of the world. Like I think there's even a phrasing for it in Legends where it says like has the appearance of someone who's 100 whatever years old, because like the initial rulers and all the things in the year one all have to be like not babies. So they were essentially created like whatever the creation story is, which is of course a future thing. Created a goblin that would have then been like 120 years old at the beginning of World Gen, something like that. I don't remember exactly how that works, but that's the idea.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The next one here is a pretty open question, and the answer might just be not at all. But so this one comes in from Saphiro, and they say, how different have Zach and Tarn's lives been since post-release?
Oh, let's see. We haven't received the fruits of our labor yet.
Yeah, people. I mean, the very first point is that we should be receiving the first big payout in February, so that's one thing. But other than that, a lot of interviews, very busy.
Yeah, Tarn moved.
I did move. I decided to move myself, so that's been hectic. But it's good. And I got my health insurance. People be happy to hear. My better health insurance, like it's more expensive, but we're obviously hoping to cover it as very soon. So I think and just the whole work life has changed now with all of the people, like just interacting with all of the different people that are working with us. What else? Anything else stick out?
No, because we're already in that mode of working with all the people.
Yeah, that's actually been the case for 3 years or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess maybe my life is filled with more joy.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. I mean, it does. Yeah. I mean, that does change things. Even without having a payout or whatever, you
Everyone's happy.
Yeah, there's a little less stress along those lines. I mean, there's some stress along other lines. Having to figure things out. I mean, we cannot manage this kind of stuff by ourselves, so we have to talk about accountants and stuff, right? And that's all just a big old thing, right? We don't know anything about that stuff, but now it's required of us because we don't even know what our obligations are, right? And that needs to be sorted out by April in this country. So that all needs to be handled, stuff like that. And so things are different, but we think things are better, and things are going well.
Waylon, do you want to take this next one from Arcmaster?
Is there a sense of contentment at this point? And you guys kind of answered this a bit, but is there a sense of contentment at this point, or does it feel like an endless task? How are you guys coping with updates and timetables?
Timetables are a little different.
Yeah.
It is kind of there's deadlines. It's not like a hard fast thing.
The only real, like the December 6th / October 26th deadline. I mean, there was a lot of stress associated with that.
Yeah.
Now it's like for instance, we were just saying, over in the talking to the KitFox people, like, is there going to be a patch, this Thursday or whatever? And we're like, well, we better decide, and then we're going to have to do
wrangle up the artists,
get things, some things that we thought we maybe had more time for. Yeah, but we can do it. We're just like, okay, we'll get it together. But it's not super high stress, not yet. We'll see. But it's not, we'll just. So this is different. It's different. The workflow is all different. Everything about it is different, and we haven't been doing it long enough to really have strong opinions about what that's going to be like overall. I think it seems fine.
It's the passion project that just keeps going, right?
Yeah, I still enjoy it.
Blink twice if you guys are miserable and you're being tortured.
You can't see us. You never know.
All right, so this next one comes in from ! Vote Gremlin! And they say, on the classic release on the Bay 12 Games website, how is the download amount now? What are the number of players that play 0.5 plus, but not on the Steam and itch versions?
No idea.
What was it, 100,000 or something?
Yeah, we were getting like 50,000 a month before. The problem, I don't, like, my old stats thing doesn't work anymore, and I have another stats thing. It's just not something that, like, we're gonna support classic, so who cares? But obviously people care because they ask. So, like, yeah, I wish I had a little more information here. I'm trying to click through things right now, but like, we're nested through like different, because there's this type of control panel called cPanel. There's another one called Plesk, and then there's another one called something else, and we're on the something else one. And it's like, and then so. I may be able to answer this question, not at the moment, but I will be fiddling with stuff in the background for a little bit.
Better toss it into a future dev post or something.
Yeah, or I could just say it in a few minutes.
Okay. So this is kind of an open one, and it comes in from a fellow YouTuber and creator, Further Reading. And he says, hello, Dwarf Fortress is famous for its emergent storytelling. Do you have any player stories you particularly enjoy? Also, how do you approach creating the potential for emergent storytelling through your game design?
Well, I mean, player stories we particularly enjoy. It's always hard to come up with specific examples. We were watching a lot of streamers, actually. Do you remember a stream story that you've enjoyed?
Oh, yeah. And it's always fun to see how water destroys everything.
Because what was that?
Although there are some,
we saw some good ones. We saw some good ones lately.
Yeah.
Do you remember the one with there was someone who had an experiment come to their fortress, right? Like an 8-year-old experiment coming as a visitor. And they approved their residency request, and just seeing that was amazing. It's not a story, but it's part of a story, and it will be a story that gets better and better. And yeah, I don't know. It's in terms of like making games set up for storytelling purposes. I mean, you really have to give the player. You have to have some kind of simulation or something, right? Because people aren't just going to talk about. I mean, they might talk about the cutscene, but that's not going to be part of their story. So you need to have some bits and bobs bumping around, bumping against each other mechanically. But then you need to give the player the ability to see those things. Your exposition has to be good enough, and you need to give the player the ability to investigate those things.
The thought ticker in their mind. That's a good one. And they're like, I remember a story about like someone, I forget what it was. It was like they wanted to build the ultimate craft, but they hated craftsmanship, so they're constantly conflicted, and that was their life. It reminds me of me with my actual authoring career.
Is it all completely random, or do you guys have some secret, sneaky code that's like, oh, this is the perfect time for this to happen? Do you do any of that?
No, we try not to. I mean, there's obvious ones like invasions where we just kind of front that yes, this is the difficulty setting, these are the triggers, and we're doing stuff like the army art to get rid of this. Like we don't like it, like the things that are like storytelling engines or whatever that kind of essentially like try and decide when random events are going to happen to kind of make plot stuff happen. We've just always like it's at least our philosophy that it's better when it's organic, and that any system you're going to make, you're going to outgrow.
Right, but it still has to be balanced in a way that you just don't get wiped out every single time.
Yeah, no, it's totally up to you to do a good job and
wiped out early, I should say. I mean, you should be wiped out eventually, but
okay, I am I'm getting to the downloads here. I'm getting there. I got bandwidth. I'm looking at lists. Where do I get? There's the file names here. What is our name of our? What's our current release? Is it like 505? That's like a pants though. It's like Levi's 505. It's 5. Here it is. 50.05. Bandwidth 172 gigabytes. Average size 8,000 or 8 megabytes, which is not the whole file, or is that the whole file?
I can download it right now and tell you.
Yeah, because it's 13,000 hits, but a hit doesn't mean anything. So you always have to be careful. You always have to be careful with your metrics here.
The zipped folder is 12,517 kilobytes.
Okay, 12. Okay, so 12 megs. So if we took 172.88 0 divided by 12, yeah. So it's right. The hits and the size is about correct. So we have about 13,000.
Okay.
And on 40B there were 5,000 in this month. I don't remember when it came out. And Linux and Mac users still pulling down, 1,000 in the last month, in January. I believe these are January metrics. I could be wrong because I was scrolling through this really fast. So there's still obviously Linux and Mac. Yeah, this is January metrics. December we didn't have any. When was the classic release? The first one?
End of December, like the last week, I think.
Yeah, let's see if I'm going to pull up December. I've got the stats for that too, and see how we did. 40B, yeah, 13,000 again. So it looks like we're getting it looks like we're getting about 13,000 a month. January, of course, is going to run a little bit longer, so you could make.
How's that compared to Steam number?
So if Steam is 500,000, so we're getting about I mean it's like 20 or 30 times.
Wow.
There's still some dedicated, but there's a lot of dedicated. It looks like there's still a lot of dedicated classic people.
There's a lot of dedicated version 47 people that I'm still aware of that are like either playing on Mac or still are attached to their tile sets. So
in fact, during December, the Windows version 4705 got about 30,000 downloads.
Interesting.
Wow.
And the Mac got 7,000, Linux got 5,000. So yeah.
Just from my own asking chat, I know that a good number of people were downloading version 47 just to try adventure mode, just out of curiosity.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. That's cool. It makes sense. And this month, I don't remember what I said for version 47 Windows. Yeah, no one basically. I think everyone's kind of moved over.
I also had to do a lot of explaining about what exactly as slaves to Armok is.
Yeah. We decided to trim it because of Steam stuff or whatever. It was just kind of confusing for everybody. But obviously, still part of the history of the game, and you can still see it in the old versions. And yeah, there's a lot of unanswered questions about whether we're going to ever bring the intro movie back to classic mode, that kind of stuff. It's like that stuff hasn't gone anywhere. We still have the files and are just obviously in this rush period still, where nothing, like our feet have not touched the ground yet. We're still in that situation.
Yeah,
there's still so much going on.
I got a lot of questions about the intro movie, and also like 45 about keyboard support. So it's like those two, I kind of just did a Control F delete because I'm pretty sure something will happen with the intro movie eventually, probably just because the sound bite's still in there, in the music at least.
So. Yeah. No, in fact, that music was originally timed. They were like, you could just play the intro movie and it'll line up. With the new music, and then we were like
a little too tacky.
And we were just like, but we've got different loading times. We want to start the music when the load happens. The loads are going to get spaced out and stuff. It's just not practical. So we're searching around for thing. And of course, like Kid Fox has connections with those people that did like the full like anime magic girl transformations for the boyfriend dungeon weapons and stuff like that. It's like, there could be a classic and a not classic premium intro movie or whatever. Who knows?
Like that really old, like I think it was a hand-drawn animated intro that somebody did on YouTube like 8 or 9 years ago. I soon remember seeing.
Yeah, no, we should make a 30-minute cartoon feature.
Netflix, let's do it. Although, oh man. Why am I like blanking on the name of this of the guy who's voicing Mario? It's just like that has to be a dwarf, but
Chris Pratt.
Chris Pratt would have to voice a dwarf if you do that.
No, there's the cost. There's always the cost, the price to be paid.
The cost of Netflix. So this next question comes in from Joe True, and they say, why can't I set all dwarves to mine in the labor screen?
Just doing everybody does it? Instead of select, because you can select them manually, right?
Why can't I just click everybody does this?
Because we figured that would be a kind of new player trap for not having picks and generally be mess.
Or all having axes as well.
Yeah. That you need to have physical control over who these dwarves are for those 3 jobs: hunting, mining, and woodcutting. Or it just gets too messy because we're still stuck with that system. I mean, that weird item equipment system for those 3 jobs that just causes all kinds of trouble.
Waylon, do you want to take this second to last one on the list?
Mm-hmm. This is from Azadius. Will we get sorting, searching added to every menu, such as pinning entities, character screens, etc.?
I don't recall if Putnam threatened this specifically, but they've been making widgets, and this seems like the sort of thing that eventually is going to be a lot more put together and homogenous than what I threw together as I was scrambling up this release. So this seems like a thing to expect as we go. Yeah.
And
Nice.
The final user submitted question I have on here comes in once again from !! Gremlin for mayor ! And the Gremlin themselves asks, or the Gremlin electoral campaign, I would assume, asks, any confirmation on having Gremlin as a mascot in the tutorial? And they say, for context, here's a link to the AMA. And I'm going to plop this in chat where Tarn answers this same question. Right
now we just have a question mark, which is definitely dull. And it is. Yes, I like 3 ideas. Gremlins are fun and mischievous. The Gorlak is a natural guide, and the debug creature isn't yet used. And so these things are all very true. So yeah, no update timeline on that. This is the exact kind of thing that didn't happen because of the crunch for time. But yeah, no, I agree. I agree with anyone who thinks question mark has to go, because I think the question mark's kind of stupid. It's help. Like, you don't need to be told it's help by having a question mark that's like 8x6 ASCII tiles or something. It's big. It's a big question mark when it could be a big gremlin or a big Gorlak or a big debug creature. And I think, it's almost like a tone of voice thing. It's like, are there some tutorial pop-ups that are more mischievous than others?
Well, the one that says you should build an everything stockpile should definitely be a gremlin.
Yeah, it's a choice.
So since I'm through all of my audience submitted questions now, Waylon, I'm going to toss you the floor here, and if there's anything else you would like to bring up topics-wise, we're going to do that now.
I mean, pretty much all my questions were answered, but I was curious about the Steamdeck, and if you guys have done any work with that, or have you just left it off to the side, much like I have, to focus on later, and what your experience with that has been.
It's such a weird thing because, like, apparently the game basically works on the Steam Deck, and we did not think about nor touch this.
No.
Yeah, same for me.
No.
And so so now that it's a thing and seems to be working, and also this, as far as I know, has actually piqued Valve's interest a little bit, because we were a top seller for Steam Deck or something, and so we may have to think about it a little more carefully. Because I think the keyboard input doesn't work because we don't have a keyboard, right? And so we may do something with that. So there's certain things, like if you can get a narrow list of improvements, then it may be worth considering. But we haven't dedicated a lot of time to it, and currently don't have plans to do that, partially because it seems to be working.
Right. Okay.
And this may change a lot when we do the Mac, and especially the Linux version. That could open up some things there, because they're related somehow, I think, or something.
Got to give Steam credit for releasing that, and it just works. My game. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I know.
And it's it's like a door to thinking at least about Dwarf Fortress on consoles too, right? It's just a weird thought.
Mm-hmm.
I know Putnam was throwing around the idea when I was speaking with them about picking up a Steam Deck to mess around with it and also have something to do while waiting for the game to compile.
Yeah. No, that's in the works. In some sense, that's in the works. It's not like we have a specific thing, but we're like, hey, we could get a Steam Deck for Putnam.
How long does 700,000 lines of code take to compile these days?
I got the newer MSVC, and the number went down. Fortunately, it takes maybe, if for a full release version, I think it's something it took me 18 minutes, and it took Putnam a little bit longer, but not much. I don't remember if it was 25 or 30, and that number used to be 51.
Yeah,
on an older version, so they really sped it up. And then if I'm lucky, the incremental linking works. I have very spotty results with incremental linking, but if I'm just working on one file in a pretty controlled way, then the subsequent compiles take 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
But then what happens is that eventually it stops working, but it still compiles, and then there's a bug, and I have to clean out and then do the full compile again.
Right.
And sometimes you don't notice. That's why I always do obviously a clean compile for releases, rather than relying on an incremental, because you never know.
Yeah, sneak by.
Yeah, some stuff can sneak through, but it's really convenient when you're just testing some debug thing and you're constantly changing the text string being outputted or something. That that it compiles in 30 seconds. I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it used to be 51 minutes for release crashes or something, right? Like change one thing that I'm looking at and then 51 minutes.
Wow.
No good.
That's a slow.
These are the bad old days.
Yeah, the bad old days for sure.
So, since I'm at the end of my audience questions, and I think we've kind of exhausted all topics, I think it is time to bring this chat here to a close. So I just wanted to say, first and foremost, Zach and Tarn, thank you very much for lending us your time once again and answering all of these audience questions and making this cool video game that we all get to play. And Waylon, thanks for helping me co-host.
Yeah, thanks for having me aboard. And I just want to say thanks to Tarn and Zach and Kit Vox. Obviously, Odd Realm is really inspired by the work that you guys do, and I really appreciate everything you do, and I really look up to you guys. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And y'all listening should go play it.
That's right. Yeah, and for all the people that have been supporting us through all the years, and for the people who paved the way for Dwarf Fortress to be on Steam, just like Odd Realm. I mean, if people didn't learn how to play Odd Realm, they definitely, if they did that, then they gives you a leg up on how to play Dwarf Fortress. So.
Yeah, all these base builders are in it together.
Yeah.
Building the base of a new genre.
That's right.
It's almost a dad joke. But I'm going to take us off air now, so thank you, chat room, for being, I guess, kind of the third co-host here. And I will be back in a couple of minutes once I've finished up behind the scenes. So thank you very much, everybody, for watching. We'll do this again in a couple of months.
Yep.
See ya.